Welcome in to the Uncrowned post-show for Artur Beterbiev versus Dmitry Bivol 2. And we just saw Dmitry Bivol defeat Beterbiev by majority decision. Incredibly close fight. An incredible fight, though.
And new.
I was going to say I'm Connor Bergstrom alongside my man, as you know, Eric Jackman. You got to throw the lower thirds up. You got to let them know who we are. But yes, and new. Dmitry Bivol gets it done in a very close fight. A tale of two fights almost. It was like Bivol wins a couple rounds. Beterbiev wins a long stretch of rounds. And then it's a back and forth affair down the stretch. A lot of momentum shifts, a lot of great moments. But ultimately, Bivol comes out victorious and walks away with the Pirates' share, the treasure, all the belts. He's got it all. They were trying to throw another one over his shoulder at one point. I mean, the guy gets it done, and now we have a new undisputed champion.
Could not deserve it more. Humble in defeat last time, humble in victory this time. Saying that he dealt with a little bit of inflammation, some injuries in the lead up to it, wants some time to rest. But man, when the expectations are up here for that first fight and it delivered, I thought, let's do it again. Expectations up here for the second fight, and it delivered again. Almost a mirror, not quite a mirror image, right? Because the first one, the story was more Beterbiev coming on late, and this time it was Bivol who, at the later rounds, just looked to have that spring in his step, getting in and out, doing the busier work, and the power and the aggression and the ruthlessness that you expect from Beterbiev kind of just waned and waned and waned.
Yeah, I mean, it was just like rounds 4, 5, and 6 from Beterbiev. It looked like Bivol had nothing. I mean, as we were watching, it was just like the work rate of Beterbiev and compared to the work rate of Bivol and the power shots that he was landing, and just like he had him moving the entire time. It was just like, man, Beterbiev's going to run away with this thing because late he's probably going to have the advantage.
Yeah, the activity that we saw in the first two rounds, the springiness in the step, the footwork, the movement, it kind of disappeared in those middle rounds. And then all of a sudden it came back and it completely shifted the momentum of the fight. When Bivol was there to be hit in those middle rounds, now he wasn't. And Beterbiev was chasing him and not finding success and not able to corner him. I don't know what changed there. I don't know what the tactical difference was between those middle rounds and the late part of the fight. But it was just a completely different fight. Once his footwork got back in play, he looked like the better fighter, and he deserved that win.
He stopped backing up. He started sitting down on the punches more, and he just started putting up more volume. It really was. We said it before the fight started. It's just like, this is why we love these 12-round championship bouts, because there's just so many stories. There's so many evolutions as the fight goes on. And when it's at this highest level, like it is.
We thought it was done.
Literally, I was just like, we got to see something from Bivol here, right?
Yeah.
And then he just slowly gets back into it, and you're like, oh, okay, now he's only down 2 rounds. Well, now he's down 1, and a lot of people were scoring it live for Bivol. Like, he had the advantage in the later rounds. It really is just what makes boxing so great. You get these long, drawn-out stories told over the course of the 12 rounds.
I think it should be pointed out that you and I scored it for Beterbiev in a close fight. I scored it 115 to 113. You scored it the same way. A lot of these rounds toward the end were kind of like, which way are you going? You could lean different directions. Incredibly close fight, and I think whoever would have come out victorious there would have deserved it. Just an amazing performance by both guys.
Yeah, I mean, when they said 114, and then they started reading out the second judge's scorecard, I thought we were going to get just a straight draw.
Yeah, like we saw earlier in the night.
Yeah, with Carlos Adames and Hamzah Sheeraz. It's just like, if we got a draw, it's just like, what do you do with it from there? It's just like, now it's 1-0-1. Like, does Beterbiev have any interest in even running it back again? It's just, a draw would have really put a wrench in it. Now I think you have to do a third fight.
Yeah, it's his belt now. Bivol's undisputed. And I think Beterbiev deserves another opportunity at it. But
absolutely.
What we saw earlier in the broadcast was Turki Al-Sheikh saying that Benavidez, what he said was he wants Benavidez to fight the winner. So I don't know. I look, don't get me wrong. I'm not going to turn down a Bivol versus Benavidez fight. Like, I'm all in on that. But it feels like Beterbiev deserves another crack at it.
Yeah, we said it in the post-fight interview. You know, he's just like, I don't want to talk about the decision. I don't really care about that. Like, it's okay that I lost, but now it's my time to come back. And I just can't imagine that Beterbiev wants to come back and not be fighting for the undisputed title that he just lost. I mean, it's his first professional loss, and he's 40 years old. Like, you think that after giving Bivol another shot, you feel like he deserves the trilogy. Winner of that, then we move on.
Well, especially considering that Bivol saying he wants to take some time to rest, right? Because
Yeah.
let's say they get back in there quick, maybe he can do a Benavidez fight while Beterbiev takes some time off. That might work. That might work in some certain scenario, and then he gets to fight for those belts after the fact. Considering that Bivol is going to take some time off, to me it feels like the appropriate move as they come back against each other. But I think there will be many boxing people out there that really want to see Benavidez get that opportunity.
Yeah, I mean, what can you say about these two dudes, though? After being in there for 24 rounds together, 2 majority decisions, like it's just like the difference in them is like this.
It'll be around
insane.
different. They do it 10 times and it'll be around different. It's just how this is.
I know, and I imagine if we go to a third one, we'll probably end up going all 12 rounds again. They'll have 108 minutes of fight time together. It'll be like the closest trilogy in the history of ever. That's our thoughts on it. You just watched it with us on the watch party. Now we're breaking it down a little bit. Let's bring in a third perspective. Let's bring in our man, Keith Idec, fantastic writer for Uncrowned.com. Keith, we're fresh off of it. Incredibly close fight, Bivol and New. Welcome in, brother. What did you make of that one?
Hey, how you guys doing? Appreciate you having me. I thought that he won 115, 113, and as I'm sure you guys started to feel by about the 4th round, it looked like Beterbiev was going to wear Bivol down and eventually stop him the way that it was looking, and he just completely turned the fight around in the 8th round. He had a very strong 8th round. He backed up Beterbiev. He regained control of the fight himself. And then I think he was just in such incredible physical condition. He was able to get off punches in a way that kept Beterbiev on his back foot at times when people probably did not expect that. Beterbiev himself was worn down a little bit, and Bivol just did enough to outpoint him, I thought. And it was, in my opinion, guys, a much more entertaining fight than their first fight. And I thought the right guy won.
What did you make of that switch that happened in the middle of the fight? Was it? Do you believe it was strategic? Do you believe it was just catching a second win and Beterbiev losing his? Like, what did you make as that was unfolding into the later rounds?
Yeah, I think what you just said. I think it was a combination of him gaining his second win and Beterbiev getting tired a little bit because Beterbiev had, expended a lot of energy trying to get him out of there, because I think that really seemed to be his plan, because he started pouring it on in the 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th rounds. The 7th round was a solid round for Bivol as well, but definitely the 4th, 5th, and 6th rounds, Beterbiev was really taking it to Bivol, and it looked like he was getting worn down, and he wasn't going to be able to take that type of power for the rest of the fight. And then he just this resurgence that he had in this, started in the 7th round a little bit, but then certainly in the 8th round, and just completely regained control of the fight, which he had in the first 2 rounds. I thought the first 2 rounds were very strong for Bivol, and he fought similarly to the way that he did in 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12. So it was a great performance from him, a career-defining performance from him, and it makes everyone, I think, more excited about a third fight than they were about a second fight.
Okay, you beat me to it. This is the story. This is the topic on everybody's mind. I'm going to ask you here, what is the next fight for Dmitry Bivol? What is the next fight for Artur Beterbiev? What is the next fight for David Benavidez? How does this picture play out?
Yeah, they're going to fight again. I mean, there's just too much money at stake, and they're already committed to it, frankly. So this fight, look, for all intents and purposes, what Turkey Al-Sheikh and the GEA in Saudi Arabia want, they have the financial wherewithal to make happen. They want this fight to happen a third time. David Benavidez can, he can stay busy in another fight. It's unfortunate for Benavidez because he flew all the way over there, and if Beterbiev would have won, that would have been the natural fight next, because he's the interim champion for the WBC and the mandatory challenger, and it would have made perfect sense. And people will want to see him fight the winner of the third fight. It's just going to take a little while longer, and then on the PBC side of it, or maybe even in conjunction with Riyadh season, he gets a fight to stay busy in between. Certainly not someone as good as David Morrell, and just try to keep Benavidez busy for his second fight of the year. And then maybe, early in 2026, we say Benavidez fight the winner of the third fight.
Yeah, I was going to even ask, do we even have Benavidez fight in the interim? Do we just have him wait, and then once the third fight gets booked, he's waiting ringside and he gets the winner automatically?
The only reason I would say no is because I think too much time will have elapsed to allow that to happen, and you don't want him to get stale. And because it sounded to me like Bivol is dealing with some significant injuries. He said he was on anti-inflammatories throughout this training camp, so he's going to need an extended break, because obviously they fought very quickly after October 12th, particularly for for Beterbiev's pace in his career. I mean, it was a quick turnaround for him. So I think they'll take some real time off here and fight maybe in the fall, mid-fall to late fall, and then early in 2026, the winner would be there to fight Benavidez in a fight that people would really want to see. So I think you can't have Benavidez waiting around from February 1st of 2025 until whenever he might get the winner. It's just too long a period of time. So I think if you get him a reasonable opponent and get him in there with someone that, and look, David Benavidez could beat anyone. I don't mean it in that way. It's just, get him someone reasonable where he's not in some sort of dogfight like he sort of was against Morel, even though he convincingly won. That was a tough fight. David Benavidez called it the toughest fight of his career. He told David Morel that to his face after the fight and let him know how much he respected him. I think people would want to see that again. I don't think that's the wisest thing for Benavidez, and it's not really necessary in the sense that he won convincingly, even though it was a tough fight.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, let's move to a wild story in the co-main event where we saw Daniel Dubois get ill during fight week, fall out. Martin Bakole jump in on extremely short notice, show up less than 24 hours before fight time. Joseph Parker able to get it done, second round, glancing shot off the top of the head. What does this do for Joseph Parker's stock?
I think it soars. I mean, you have to be realistic as well. Martin Bakole, I felt really good about my own physique when I saw Martin Bakole get into the ring tonight. So I don't know what he was doing exactly. And of course, to be fair to him, he wasn't in training camp. He was supposed to fight May 2nd, and so he's about 40 pounds heavier than his last fight. So, he wasn't in fighting shape, but I give him a lot of credit. He took, you guys know the story. He took the fight on Thursday. He didn't arrive in Riyadh until 2 a.m. on the day of the fight. I mean, it was basically 23 hours later, he's in the ring when he had no inclination that he was going to be in the ring 3 days before that. I mean, it's a pretty incredible story. Yes, he was paid well, but it was a big risk for him to take. Takes a shot on the top of the head that knocked his equilibrium off, and there he is. So, but I think from his perspective, I think he should be allowed to, even though he lost tonight, he should be allowed to go back into this eliminator with Efe Ajagba because, I want to say he saved the show. I mean, he was paid handsomely and everything, but he did something that he did not have to do. So I don't think he should be penalized for that, particularly because he lost to someone so good. Joseph Parker has had an amazing resurgence himself. So yeah, I think a great win for Parker. He hadn't fought in quite some time. And I hope they're able to reschedule this Dubois fight, although I'm hearing rumblings that Dubois might go back, not back. He might go into a rematch with AJ because there's too much money there. So maybe Parker will wind up having to wait.
So if they go a rematch with AJ for Dubois, do you think there's any chance that Parker would go into the fight with Usyk, or do you think Usyk is waiting to see how this all plays out?
Yeah, that's a reasonable path to see happening here, and Parker deserves it at this point. I mean, look at what he's done over the last year and a half. It's pretty incredible turnaround from a guy who was violently knocked out by Joe Joyce, whose career fell apart thereafter. But yeah, I mean, Joseph Parker deserves a lot of credit. Bakole's coming off now. Look, I think the Bakole-Jared Anderson fight was more a reflection of Jared Anderson than Martin Bakole. Martin Bakole can obviously punch. There are all these gym stories about him violently knocking guys out and sparring, and that's why people don't want to fight him. I'm sure there's some truth to that, and he is a huge puncher. But Jared Anderson is just not. He was a bully who ascended to a certain point in the sport when he was beating inferior opponents and taking guys out. And then when he came up against someone who could punch and he couldn't get out of there, he didn't know how to react to it, and he's just not equipped to win at the elite level. And then when you saw him fight last, I was ringside in New York last Friday. He won convincingly, but that was not an impressive performance. He made a lot of the same defensive mistakes that he's previously made, the types of mistakes that cost him against Martin Bakole. So my point overall, guys, is that Bakole, while dangerous, might have been overhyped a little bit because he beat an undefeated American fighter who had some hype behind him, but was probably overrated and was never going to ascend to where people thought.
Yeah, and I think we saw that, the difference in the experience and the skill in this fight. Moving one more down, we saw a showcase fight for Shakur Stevenson. Another kind of wild story, stepping in on short notice. I'll start with the performance from Shakur. Was this what he needed? What would you grade this in terms of what Shakur Stevenson needs? Now we're coming off the heels of being booed and the stock taking a little bit of a hit. How would you say that this one lines up with what he needed?
Yeah, Shakur desperately needed a stoppage in this fight. I mean, it looked like he was going to take Josh Padley out earlier than he did. And man, kudos to Josh Padley. You know, he's at work installing solar panels on Tuesday, and somehow he's in the ring with Shakur Stevenson 4 days later. I mean, that's a man's man. So, he was handsomely rewarded again. You know, he was his purse was 7 figures, and Turki Al-Sheikh gave him a house as part of his compensation package. I mean, it's pretty.
Wow, I didn't know that.
It's pretty incredible. So, that's what boxing is about, though, guys. You guys well know this. I mean, it's incredible that you can change the life of not only your life, the lives of your family by just taking that one phone call that you didn't see coming. And look, he took a beating tonight. There's no two ways about it. But he gave it everything he had. He's just overmatched against a guy who's at an elite level skill-wise, not the biggest puncher in the world. And you hate to see a guy take the kind of punishment that Josh Padley took tonight. I would rather see a guy, and I'm sure you guys would as well, rather see him get knocked out in the 3rd or 4th round and call it a night and live to fight another day. And he will live to fight another day, but he took a lot of punishment tonight to the head and to the body. He winds up going down 3 times. But Shakur did need that type of performance because, what happened against Artem Harutyunyan and particularly the Edwin De Los Santos fight damaged his reputation almost beyond repair in some circles, and he really needed a convincing win. Look, it would have been better if that win came against Floyd Schofield. I don't know what is going on in the world of Floyd Schofield. I mean, he's being poisoned. People are stealing pages from his passport. There's a lot of wild stuff going on there. So, or imaginary stuff going on there, I suppose. But, look, it would have been better if he beat Schofield, who was a big underdog as well, not a 40-1 or 50-1 underdog, but he was a big underdog too. So, Shakur did, he enhanced his stock. And now, of course, where we are now, they're on the same schedule. Tank is fighting a week from tonight, and that's a fight in the lightweight division that people will want to see. And hopefully we'll get it later this year. I mean, there's no guarantee because of the, varying business interests, the competing business interests, I should say. And, hopefully we get it though.
Is another concern for that. It was alluded to on the broadcast. Shakur was grimacing and shaking out his left hand after each one of his punches that he threw. We know the history of the injury there. Is that a concern with him potentially getting the Tank fight?
Yeah, I just think he's going to need some time off, and he's having a lot of issues with his hands because that's really what happened in the De Los Santos fight. He should have withdrawn from that fight. And look, once you walk up those steps, whatever happens, and then it's your problem to deal with after that. But he should have pulled out of that fight. He had a shoulder injury, he had elbow injuries, he had hand injuries. He should not have fought that night, but it is what it is. So he's taking the criticism, and understandably so. But it looks like these hand issues are going to follow him now. And that's what it was like for Floyd Mayweather. He had to figure out some sort of treatment plan that helped him manage the pain. Because you can only have so many surgeries, obviously. So hopefully that's not something that prevents them from fighting later this year. But Tank is a 2-time-a-year fighter. So is Shakur Stevenson. So you would hope that if Tank handles his business a week from tonight, that they could at least have some serious discussions about bringing that fight together finally toward the end of this year.
Yeah, it makes all the sense in the world. Speaking of the hands, we saw the fight between Adames and Sheeraz. It seemed like his hand was bothering him. It seemed like that was the result when he took off the glove at the end. And now, obviously, I haven't been able to follow what happened medically. Maybe there's an update on that. But his hand was swollen, and that jab just completely stopped. Are you hearing anything about what that looked like after the fact?
I mean, I saw it obviously, but I haven't heard any updates because the fights. Thankfully, we had such a great. That's another thing, guys. The pace of this event was fantastic.
They
did not waste a lot of time pontificating, and there were some minor breaks, and of course Turki Al-Sheikh spoke at the end, which I think that's your right to do when you pay for all the fights, I guess. But yeah, so the pace was amazing, and so we haven't gotten an update yet. I'm sure we will relatively soon, but I don't want to take Carlos Adames won that fight, period.
We scored for him as well.
Yeah, so I mean, it's unfortunate that happened to him. I thought he won 8 rounds, maybe 9. I didn't really think that Sheeraz was as good as people were making it out because of what I saw against Ammo Williams. He was hurt badly early in that fight. I didn't know that he had the whiskers, so to speak, to handle Carlos Adames, who's an underrated fighter. Now he held up. I mean, because he got hit cleanly a lot, and his chin did hold up, so I give him credit for that. But he lost the fight. So whether he was hurt or not, I don't know that it certainly impacted his jab. I'm not going to discount that, but I don't think he would have beaten Carlos Adames even if he had a functional jab. And unfortunately, at least Adames goes home with his title. At least he didn't lose. And I don't really see any need for them to fight again because, again, he won 2/3 of the rounds, at least, I thought.
Last one, and then we'll let you go. Agit Kabayel with some beautiful body work to stop Zhang. Obviously undefeated, only 32 years old. Where does he go? Where does he play in this heavyweight division from here?
It's interesting because Zhilei Zhang, he trains, he's from northern New Jersey here where I'm from, and I visit him in the gym quite often and see him spar, and he had said, he felt like Kabayel was going to come after his body just because that's what he had done to Makhmudov. And he said, bring it on, bring it, come to my body and watch what happens. And Zhilei's a big puncher and has that right hook and everything. But Kabayel, man, that was an impressive performance because it looked in the beginning, I thought, the way that Zhilei Zhang started off, and he starts slow sometimes. He started so fast, and he was unloading on Kabayel in the first round, and then early in the second round, I was like, man, he might take him out early. And then Kabayel, in some ways, even though it was a much shorter fight, like Bivol just completely changed the course of the fight. And then he wasn't landing to the body in the first couple of rounds, but then he was completely committed to the body, and Zhilei Zhang couldn't handle it. Period. I mean, there's no two ways about it. So Kabayel's ascent here over the last 13 or 14 months is nothing short of amazing because people have touted his talent for a long time. He just never got the fights that he wanted. And now that he's beaten these types of opponents in 3 straight fights, I mean, he deserves a title shot. So while it's sexier for Parker to fight Usyk because they're more known fighters, Kabayel deserves a title shot. So hopefully he gets it. Yeah, and I don't mean an interim title.
It was an incredible performance. Keith, thank you so much for joining us, man. We really appreciate it.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it, man.
Thank you, Keith.
All right, take care.
All right, that's it. Card of the century?
No, I don't ultimately feel that, but man, like on a night that boxing had the attention, right now we're transitioning into UFC. I was
gonna say we gotta go get on UFC Seattle.
They're just starting up.
Update from Seattle.
Oh.
Austin Vanderford.
Oh,
yeah.
Second round finish.
Woo! Let's go. Is that 3 for 3? 3 finishes so far.
Wow.
3 for 3 on finishes.
Austin
and then after the fight, his opponent, Nikolai Veretnikov, shoved Austin Vanderford in the back.
Wow.
Just out of nowhere.
Don't
and
like
then Vanderford gave him the double birds.
Double birds. Austin Van Zanderford.
Dub for.
And there's your UFC Seattle update. Ricky Simone currently in the ring.
Currently in the octagon. I thought you were about to say that he upsetted Javid Bashrat. That would have killed the parlay.
Well, he did just slam Javid to the ground.
Whoa!
We got a lot of action in Seattle.
let
the people get there.
Yeah,
Yes, go watch
wrap
UFC
this
Seattle.
boxing.
We got to go watch UFC Seattle. Dmitry Bivol, incredible performance, incredible fight, and new. Joseph Parker, give him the Usyk fight. I'm calling for it. Shakur, give him the Tank fight. Run back Adames Sheeraz. And you just heard it, Kabayel. Give him a title shot.
For me, the story.
Kabayel Dubois.
For me, the story of the night was winners even in defeat, right? Like, or not in victory, right? Like, Beterbiev, the stock's still good. That he put on the performance that you need to put on. Bakoli, I agree with Keith Idec. Like, he should not be penalized. He should be given that opportunity.
For sure.
He took a shot. He couldn't make it.
Think about those circumstances, man.
And Adames, right?
Yeah.
Walks away with his title. It's a draw, but I think a lot of people thought he won that fight.
Yeah.
Lots of guys who showed out even if they didn't get their hand raised. And then for the winners, like, congratulations, like a big night. So I thought this fight card delivered. Big night for boxing. Card of the century, that I don't know.
No,
but those two could be a pairing of the century because they're incredible together.
Maybe them in like a co-main of a heavyweight clash. Usyk and someone, and then you put them in a co-main.
Put them in the co-main of
That-
Jake Paul
now you're
versus...
now you're really talking. Canelo, Jake Paul, better be a Bivol 3. Now we're building the real card of the century. All right, that'll do it for us for the Uncrowned post-fight show. Thank you for joining along with us. 4.5 hours in the can. Better be at Bivol too. That's that. Go enjoy UFC Seattle and enjoy the rest of your weekend. We'll see you right here on Monday for the ArielHelwani show. Peace. We're out of here.